So I'm happy to be with again Dr. Caroline Picart. If you the first time if you're seeing some of our videos, let me just give a brief bio. Um, so after 21 years as a professor teaching across various parts of the Philippines, South Korea, various parts of the US, she's a scholar, attorney, philosopher, dance sport athlete who has published over 20 peer-reviewed scholarly books and numerous articles and book chapters in law, philosophy, film, criminology, sociology, and also in communications. And also she ties gender into a lot of her discussions as well, and a lot of her writings as well. And of course, she founded Kinesthetics LLC, which we talked about last time. But today we're going to talk about crime and the law and monsters. Okay, so it's going to be a different format than what we did before. Rather than just do a Q&A, we'll save that for after. But I think that Dr. Picard wants to start out by giving us a little kind of a lecture, mini lecture about her research into this subject. So, Dr. Picard, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Brian. That was a wonderful introduction, as always. I'm honored to be here. Okay, the title of the short talk, it'll be less than 20 minutes, I promise. I timed it. It's called Experiments in Gothic Criminology, Some Thoughts on Monsters, Law, and Crime. Monsters, Law, Crime, Explorations in Gothic Criminology aspires to be a bold and intellectually stimulating collection that pushes the boundaries of traditional criminological inquiry. Situated at the crossroads of law, culture, and interdisciplinary scholarship, this volume offers an in-depth exploration of how the concept of the monster, in quotes, functions within legal, social, and cultural discourses. At the core of the book is the theoretical framework of Gothic criminology, originally developed by myself and sociologist Cecil Greek. This approach challenges conventional understandings of crime and deviance by examining the symbolic and narrative dimensions through which society constructs the idea of the, quote, criminal. Rather than viewing crime solely through empirical or legal lenses, Gothic criminology interrogates how fear, imagination, and cultural storytelling shape perceptions of justice, danger, and otherness. One of the most compelling aspects of this edited collection is its interdisciplinary richness, featuring essays from scholars across law, criminology, sociology, anthropology, communication, and film studies. The book brings together diverse perspectives that collectively deepen the analysis. Each contribution engages with the central theme of, quote, monster talk, the language and imagery used to depict individuals or groups as threatening, deviant, or beyond the bounds of normal society. These representations, as the book reveals, are not merely fictional or symbolic. They have real, R-E-A-L, world implications influencing public opinion, legal frameworks, and policy decisions. The volume's exploration of the relationship between the real, R-E-A-L, and the real, R-E-E-L, aims to be particularly insightful by analyzing how Gothic metaphors and narratives circulate between popular culture and legal discourse. The book highlights the porous boundaries between fiction and reality. Monsters in film, literature, and media often serve as stand-ins for societal fears. Fears that can become embedded in legal practices and institutional responses to crime. This dynamic underscores the power of narrative in shaping not only cultural imagination, but also tangible systems of justice. Another strength of the collection lies in its ability to update and expand upon earlier discussions of monster theory. The essays engage with contemporary issues, demonstrating how Gothic criminology remains relevant in understanding modern forms of social anxiety and control. Whether examining marginalized groups, controversial legal cases, or media portrayals of crime, the contributors consistently reveal how the label of, quote, monster is applied, contested, and redefined across different contexts. Stylistically, the book is scholarly and intricate, reflecting its academic orientation. The arguments are complex and often theoretical, requiring careful reading and engagement. However, for readers with an interest in critical theory and interdisciplinary studies, the intellectual rewards are significant. The collection not only introduces innovative ways of thinking about crime and law, but also encourages readers to question the assumptions that underpin these fields. Overall, Monsters, Law, Crimes, Telos is to serve as a thought-provoking and original contribution to contemporary scholarship. By bridging the gap between cultural theory and legal analysis, it offers a unique perspective on how societies construct and respond to deviance. For academics, researchers, and readers interested in the intersections of law, culture, and representation, this book aims to provide a compelling and insightful exploration of the monstrous dimensions of justice. To elaborate further on a key concept that binds the edited collection together, Gothic criminology refers to a theoretical framework I, a philosophy and film professor turned attorney and law professor, and Cecil Greek, a sociologist, developed. Noting the proliferation of Gothic modes of narration and visualization in American popular culture, academia, and even public policy, we proposed a framework which we described as a Gothic criminology to attempt to analyze the fertile synapses connecting the real, R-E-A-L, and the real, R-E-E-L, in the flow of Gothic metaphors and narratives that abound around criminological phenomena that populate not only popular culture, but also academic and public policy discourses. Although there are intersections in the way we deploy the tools of Gothic criminology, which was adapted from Stanford Lyman's Gothic sociology, there are also differences. I have used Gothic criminology generally in a more limited way. That is, I track the, quote, social construction of crime and the nature of criminality, focusing specifically on the proliferation of Gothic tropes and mise-en-scène in the media's accounts, often fluctuating between fact and fiction, and teratological rhetorics, that is, monster talk. My past work focused principally on tracking evolving representations of a particular type of monster, that is, serial killers, along the registers of race, class, gender, and sexuality. Although my most recent work, as illustrated in the last essay of this edited collection, extends this analysis to American self-radicalizing terrorists. In comparison, Greek's use of a Gothic criminology is more expansive and seems more focused on overtly theological or religious themes that intersect with criminology and sociology, such as, quote, bloodlust, compulsion, fear, godlike vengeance, power, and domination, close quote. Notwithstanding these differences, which stem from disciplinary orientations and boundaries, a Gothic criminological framework potentially offers a fertile ground from which various studies on monsters, law, and crime may emerge, as this edited collection illustrates. Any attempt to grapple with the monstrous will find one locked in combat with a many-limbed, multi-headed beast resembling a hydra, capable of eternal adaptation and regeneration. As Jeffrey Andrew Weinstock noted, quote, like the monsters it theorizes, monster theory transgresses categorical boundaries, spreading out into different disciplines. Because all cultures have their own monsters, monster theory is by necessity an international endeavor. This edited collection, composed of essays written by US and international experts in law, criminology, sociology, anthropology, communication, and film, constitutes a rigorous attempt to explore fertile interdisciplinary inquiries into, quote, monsters and, quote, monster talk in relation to law and crime. Monsters, in quotes, may refer to allegorical or symbolic fantastic beings, as in literature, film, legends, or myths, for example, or actual or real, REAL, life monsters, as well as the interplay or ambiguity between the two general types of monsters. The sense in which this collection wrestles with the issue of the monstrous is classical, in that both etymologically and functionally, the term monster may be traced to two root words, monere, meaning to warn against, and monstrare, meaning to point to or to show off. Indeed, the ancient Greeks believed that only a god or a monster could survive beyond civilized walls of the city-state, an insight that converges with the first essay in this edited collection by Australian anthropologist John Morton. Monster talk, in quotes, generally construed, serves to delimit the spheres of the monstrous, uncivilized, or criminal from the realms of the normal, civilized, or the good citizen, though it may also serve a variety of other functions for different communities. An additional area of discussion using an example from film is the interplay between the realms of the real, REAL, and the real, REEL, though such a discussion can be extended to other media or fields of study. For example, for an anthropologist, the monsters of the communities they study are real, REAL, but often in a very complex sense. And there is a murkiness about the relationship between the real human monsters, for example, humans who kill out of a compunction, and monsters of legend. For a legal scholar, sociologist, or criminologist, the plethora of media-mediated representations of various real-life or fantastic monsters in different genres could be instructive about how representations of crime and the law and the monstrous operate. For a scholar of literature and/or film, the modes of narration regarding the real, REAL, or other than real, REAL, monsters often resist a simple binary. This edited collection thus explores and updates contemporary discussions of the emergent and evolving fronts of monster theory in relation to cutting-edge research on law and crime, and may be seen as extensions of the Gothic criminology generally construed. To close, this edited collection does not claim to provide an exhaustive master narrative regarding discourses binding the themes of monsters, law, and crime that comprise the subject matter of a Gothic criminological approach. It aspires to be a useful tool or catalyst for further scholarly analysis and possible policy application for audiences interested in understanding and even, to borrow from Nietzsche, reevaluating how the monstrous and its discourses or modes of visualization stand in relation to the proverbial gates of the city-state, gates that delineate the jungle of the criminal from the civilized sphere of the law. As the various essays illustrate, the relations binding the monstrous law and crime resist a simple binary, while not collapsing the spheres of the monstrous and the law into a confusing morass. As such, this volume locates itself squarely within the parameters of contemporary monster theory in that it focuses not on the whatness of the monster, but on the how and the whynesses, WHY, of how monsters, in scare quotes, not monsters without quotes, come to be rooted in specific cultural contexts, often deployed in multifarious forms of, quote, monster talk, which are narratives wielded to achieve particular socio-political objectives. The edited collection does draw from, to some extent, Michel Foucault's deconstructive critique of the social construction of the natural and the unnatural, by analyzing how these categories intersect with the often invisible reinforcement of power hierarchies and regulation of social behaviors. Nevertheless, it is important to note that several of the essays aim to discern some kind of basis, whether that be a reliance on an appeal to an ethical imperative or a notion of social justice, or what is actually real, REAL, based on experience, upon which a more refined plotting of narratives may be achieved. As such, the volume resists a simple relativism, a revolving door of warring fictions in relation to the process through which the monsterized, in scare quotes, are constructed. Finally, a Gothic criminological approach acknowledges the complex flows and ambivalences of the interrelationships between the real, REAL, and the real, REEL, especially in today's hyper-saturated and multiply mediated universe of global discourses. As such, it continues to generate new questions and methods in relation to how monsters and monster talk are useful analytic tools to understand what law and crime are and their relationships with each other. Thank you for listening.
Wow, that was beautifully articulated. And one of the things, just reaction before I have some questions, and but just from reaction to what you just said too, I think it is important for people to understand, like you pointed out, that this is not an exhaustive study because it's going to keep going on forever, right? And especially with pop culture, I mean, new movies coming out, new television shows, new comic books, new books, etc. Also, I like how you mentioned Dr. Jeffrey Weinstock, who, as we've talked off the air, I actually know him personally. He goes to the conference that I go to, and how he says that the idea that you pointed out of monstrosity kind of transcends disciplines, meaning that it's not just about the horror genre, but it can apply to law as well. And then you also cited Foucault, which just reading a lot of your articles and your book and everything, I think what immediately comes to mind with Foucault is his book on mental handicapped and
Mhm.
how that definition has changed over time. But in other words, like he doesn't say it directly, but metaphorically, what used to be a monster, if you were handicapped, that definition changes and evolves over time, different paradigms, for instance.
Mhm. Mhm.
So but yeah, so that did did you have Foucault in mind when you were like writing some of your articles and books?
Well, Michel Foucault is a powerful figure in philosophy and across fields. I did not overtly think of Michel Foucault while it's more Nietzsche that
Oh,
tends to animate much of my writing, although Michel Foucault's notion of the panopticon, the
right,
idea
yeah.
that
Mhm. You're
social
being watched.
control is,
Right,
is so heavily ingrained in us that, like Freud's conscience, we
right,
self-monitor and discipline ourselves
right,
even in the absence of overt authority over us, because of the idea that we're always being watched.
right.
But it's in fact ourselves who watch ourselves.
Yeah, that idea of the panopticon or man, that it was very powerful because the from what I understand, I mean you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the people they did not know if they were being watched or not, but it was the idea that they could be watched that that disciplined them basically.
Yeah, that's correct. And the panopticon was the point from which everyone in the prison could be watched potentially. Yes.
Right, right. And this is from a quote from one of your books. The monstrous understood as synonymous with abnormal or defective. It those things I think are true because sometimes people, and this goes like way back into the days of like, mental deficiencies and so forth, where people thought that they were just abnormal. Like, and that caused fear for them because they had never seen anybody abnormal before.
Yeah, that's actually the subject of one of the essays in the anthology or edited
Right.
collection. There's an essay by Lucy Williams, Sandra Walkley, and Barry Godfrey, who are criminologists and sociologists at the University of Liverpool in Britain, who studied the both the case files and popular sensationalized, I think tabloid,
Yeah.
Victorian newspaper accounts regarding the criminal lunatic inmates in the only criminal lunatic hospital in Britain until the 1900s, and how sensationalized the media depictions of the narratives of these
Right.
lunatics were, when in reality they were often tragic narratives rather than fantastic, mediatized narratives.
Right. And also to kind of like bring this, I kind of like a racial level. I don't know if this is relevant to, but I think it is. But like, because like in high school, I dated a Chinese girl, and she had just gotten to the United States, and she didn't know a lot of, and she was like the only Chinese person in all of her classes. And she told me she's like, I feel weird. I feel like the other. And it also worked the other way too, because she had never been in a class with all white and black and Hispanic people. So for her, the other was all these other people. But I think there is kind of an inherent fear that sometimes people have of the other, right?
That's true, although the other is also attractive or inviting at the same time, an object of fascination as much as it is of
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to say too that in one of your articles, well, I can't find it offhand, but yeah, there is, so, or maybe it was somebody else's article, but they do have w with when we look at the other, sometimes we're like appalled by it at first, we're scared of it, but then at the same time we're attracted to it, almost like we could live vicariously through like the creature of Frankenstein or whatever. And
Yes. Mhm.
and also too, I think that the creature in Frankenstein, I think that you also made the comparison of like I think you cited the 1994 Kenneth Branagh movie,
Mhm.
Frankenstein,
Mhm.
where basically you have that famous line like I like because De Niro, who plays the creature, he
Mhm.
wants like a female companion. He's
Yeah.
seeking love, and then later on in your other article on the what's her name, the Eileen.
Warnos.
Yeah, Warnos. She also in that movie is like seeking love. Um, And I don't know, I mean, the performance by Charlize Theron is great, but I think that they did kind of play a little bit loose with the facts in that.
Yes, they
Maybe
did.
you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, the film was really written from the point of view of Eileen Warner's. So it's meant to be subjective.
Right, and I think you even said say this in the book or in one of your articles that didn't she, the real life Eileen Wuornos, didn't she like communicate with the director through letter?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. And that's why you have this idealized representation of the relationship between Eileen Wuornos and her beloved.
right,
And the stark difference in terms of physicality, if you
right.
wish,
Yeah,
in
I know.
terms of the cinematic representation
Yeah,
of what that the love object looked like. So
yeah, because the real life lover didn't look anything like Christina Ricci. Yeah. Um, But the other thing too is that I think, and I still like the movie. I still would give it thumbs up. Roger Ebert called it like the best movie of the year. I wouldn't go that far, but I know that they also fictionalize like the motives behind, like, because I think the movie kind of empathizes with her a little bit or sympathizes with her a little bit. When in real life she was, and she admitted it that yeah, she just killed people. Like it wasn't based on just robbery. Like she wanted to kill people, from what I understand. I don't know.
right. Actually, Eileen Wuornos is set apart from other serial killers because there's an economic motive to her killing.
Right.
And also the fact that when she gets caught, you know, and the first time she kills, it's because she's raped.
Oh, okay, okay.
And
Yeah, that's what I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, and she's raped, and she gets away from him by killing him. And
Yeah.
that really sets off this pattern.
Yeah. Oh,
That okay, all
there we
set.
go. All right. Hey, so one of the things too that I think you talk about in your books and articles as well is that, and it kind of goes back to that idea that we kind of sometimes live vicariously. That maybe that's not the best description, but sometimes we glorify these serial killers. Like I'm just thinking of that. Well, like Ted Bundy, a lot of women liked him. They thought he was attractive, even though he killed people, ate people. Well, I don't know if he was he a cannibal too, or was that Ed Gein?
Right.
But also how like, do you remember Richard Ramirez, the famous serial killer, the Night Stalker, they called him? And didn't like some woman like dress up and show up every day at court wearing like black lipstick and all the goth stuff and everything?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and then also like we have Hannibal Lecter, which I know you wrote about too.
Mhm.
Like, why is it that people glorify serial killers sometimes? I mean, is it
Right,
psychological?
right. Well, and this is for my prior work. This is not actually in the Monsters Law Crime edited collection. It's in some of my prior work where I track the modes of narration of various serial killers in terms of race, gender, class, sexuality. And for white male serial killers, like in real life Ted Bundy, or in fiction Hannibal Lecter, who's actually a conflation of three different serial killers. For white males, they are closely associated, if you wish, with the monster called the vampire. You know, they
Right.
have this ability to mesmerize,
Yeah.
especially women.
Yeah.
They have this supreme intelligence, allegedly.
Yeah.
And think Hannibal Lecter, you know, how stylish he is, how erudite he is,
Right.
and how much he is able to enthrall the audiences. And
Yeah.
that really comes with the vampire's ability to mesmerize his victims as well. So
Right.
the type of monster changes depending upon the gender, race, class, sexuality of the serial killer. So when the serial killer is both um, homosexual, lesbian, and white trash, quote unquote, from a lower class, instead of the vampire figure, you now have the Frankenstein and monster, who is
Right.
a pitiful, to some extent, a pitiful creature in search of love, but at the same time terrifying.
Right. And you mentioned Silence of the Lambs. What's very interesting about that, because you can do a whole study just on Hannibal, the character Hannibal Lecter, not just with the Silence of the Lambs, but also going back to Manhunter, which was in the 1980s.
Mm.
But based on this, and then Red Dragon, but
Mhm.
Red Dragon's based on this, it's the same book as Manhunter. But what's also interesting and dynamic is the relationship between Clarice, Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs, and Hannibal. And what's weird, or I guess this is kind of like a pro woman, like a kind of from a gender analysis. But if you've read the book Hannibal, I don't know if you have, but the movie is completely different than the book. And in fact, believe it or not, in the end of the book,
Yes,
spoil
yes.
it they end up together. Like they end up
Yeah,
being
yeah,
a couple.
exactly. She
And
becomes his bride.
and Jodie Foster was so appalled by that's why she didn't do the movie Hannibal. And
Right.
it had Julianne Moore. But I mean,
Mhm.
I think that from her perspective as a woman, like I could completely understand why she won't want to do that.
Mhm.
Because or do that role because it's like you're caving into the serial killer, you're worshiping the serial killer and have a romance with them. It didn't make any sense. Just from just a plot standpoint, it just didn't make any sense. So I'm kind of glad that that she did. Um,
Right, right. Yeah, the novel does set it up so that it is naturalized that she becomes the bride of Dracula.
right, right, exactly, exactly. Um, Also, though, what's getting back to the idea of how people glorify serial killers. Okay, I'm a huge fan of the Scream movies. I don't know if you've ever seen the Scream movies. Okay, and I love all of them, but the last one, okay, was not that good. But, but what's funny is that a good friend of mine, my former boss, my one of my best friends, is that she has not her kids exactly, but she is guardian of these kids, and her daughter essentially dressed up as Ghostface from Scream, and she loves all the movies, and a lot of people do that too. I guess it's their way of like vicariously living as a serial killer, if they will, but not necessarily a healthy thing, but a lot of people do it.
And in fact, your ruminations, let's call them that, actually intersect with another of the essays that are part of Monsters Law Crime. Matthew Sorrento, who's a film professor, wrote a rather complex essay on genre, and in specific the evolution of the horror genre in relation to the Purge series.
Oh
And he
yeah.
said there's a progression from a siege film, which is an iteration of a home invasion film, to the urban jungle hunt in the second movie, and then to a political assassination in the third movie. And he says what makes the Purge series distinctive is that the sense of horror or terror does not come from gore, but rather it comes from terror instilled in the image of, he called it capitalism cum fascism. Anyway, so you can see how flexible a Gothic criminological approach can be because it allows for different modes of interpretation.
Yeah. You just reminded me of something. I guess this might be switching subjects a little bit, but I don't know if you ever saw the movie with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman in 1990s called Seven. Um,
Oh, yes, I've
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah, yeah.
used it in class. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so do I. So do I. The head in the box scene. Not to spoil it for students, but I show that scene as a way to metaphorically end your essay with a bang, right? But you just maybe remember that David Fincher, the director, got into like so many. He said that he went to like if you could listen to this on the DVD commentary, but he said that he went to so many Hollywood parties after that movie, and the like he got attacked from like a woman who said like, "Oh, I can't believe you showed the head in the box. There was so much gore in that movie." But in Siskel and Ebert on their show, who I love Siskel and Ebert watching those old episodes. But they said like, "Oh, this should have been NC-17 because of the graphic violence." What David Fincher says though is that actually I never showed the head in the box. It was like a split second, and the woman at the party kept attacking him like, "I saw that movie. That was horrible." And he's like, if you look at the movie in general, it's not so much what you see, it's the implied
Yeah.
violence, which is kind of like the threat of a serial killer or a monster. It's like it's not necessarily you have to look under the bed or open the closet. It's the implied fear that oh, there
Mhm.
could be something there. So it's like the
Right, right,
psychology is really
right.
important.
Which reminds me actually on a tangent here of the original book cover for Kafka's The Metamorphosis
Okay. Mhm.
was not a depiction of that the creature, which is like a cockroach, a giant cockroach is how most people visualize the creature as. It's not actually an image of the creature, it's just an half open door.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that it's the unseen that
Right.
animates the idea of the monstrous.
Right. I think also going off on a tangent a little bit, if you remember Steven Spielberg's first movie, well, I think it was his first movie. It was a made-for-TV movie called Duel. And the thing is, you never really see that it's about a guy who's driving down the highway on a like a cross-country trip, and it gets stalked by this truck driver who's just out there to kill him. And the guy has no idea why he's trying to kill him. But the whole thing is that it all takes place psychologically. Like you never actually see the killer.
Mm.
So it's kind of reminds me of that. Um,
Right.
oh, okay. So one of the things I was gonna, oh, okay. So let's get into some details of the books because like I said, I told you before we started recording, I haven't read the whole thing of Monsters, Crime and Law, or is it Monsters, Law and Crime? Or
Yes, that's correct.
okay. Uh, can you tell us a little bit about a couple other things? Can you tell us a little bit about Wayne Williams? Like, what was the story with that?
Wayne Williams. Oh, that's again not in Monsters Law
Oh,
Crime.
okay. Oh, okay.
This is again in my analysis of serial killers, and
Oh,
this
okay.
time I was looking at race. What happens when a serial killer is black rather than white? And what I find is that when it came to the case of Wayne Williams, where he was accused of killing young black boys, and actually there were only two victims for which evidence was presented. The rest they didn't have enough evidence to be able to bring it to court. So it's only actually two victims where he was found guilty of killing them. And what I find is that because of the stereotype of the white male serial killer of being highly erudite, one has to smash stereotypes, if you wish, and point out that in actuality, if you go to criminological texts, most serial killers are actually just of average intelligence. They're not as hyper erudite as Hannibal Lecter, for example, or even Ted Bundy. And when it came to Wayne Williams, the kind of discourses or narratives that tended to circulate were more about how the Black and white community would frame the narrative of the serial killer. And the Black community tended to use metaphors of monstrosity in relation to the police and the authorities. And the converse tended to naturalize narratives of violence of black on black. So you had a slightly different prism or lens that a much more complex set of narratives when it came to race.
Right, right. Also, well, this is also from probably that previous book, not the one that you mentioned before, but the last one I think it's in it. What was because I know I didn't get a chance to read the whole chapter yet, but I know that you wrote an article or a chapter on the movie Apt Pupil. So what was your argument or take on that? Because I did see the movie, but
Yeah, this was actually a collaboration with a student in the humanities. I believe he was an MA student at that time. I'm sure he's now a professor like you. Um, so again, the whole trajectory of that particular book chapter, I believe, because I don't think it's a full book, is really trying to examine the kind of narrative that proliferates around the construction of the Nazi officer as monstrous. And within the context of that pupil, in the movie version anyway, monstrosity is associated with homosexuality. And so what the article analyzes is how the filmic narration both glamorizes but also monsterizes the figure of the Nazi as homosexual.
right. Also, speaking about horror movies, I think it was either you or maybe someone that you edited in one of their chapters discussed how Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, there's a certain homosexual subtext to that too. And
Mhm.
I think that it kind of it's displayed. And that's another thing too. Like one of my professors, my thesis chairperson for my master's degree, was very much into sci-fi and horror movies. And he says that like a lot of times, and not just horror and sci-fi, but I'm thinking of a movie called Hitchcock, Strangers on a Train, and there's definitely like a homosexual subtext that a lot of people don't completely understand. Now with horror, I don't know if you ever saw the Hostel movies. They're like these produced by Tarantino. They're like torture porn movies, but there's a lot of homosexual subtext going on in those as well. So I don't know where I was going. I guess it's not a question. I was just making an observation.
Right, right. And this idea actually has been explored by another student of mine. If you're interested in that, look up John Edgar Browning's writings.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Mhm. So he does deal with that, and in Monsters Law Crime, he does a collaboration with D.J. Williams, who is a social and behavioral scientist. So I think that basically means a sociologist with a more applied format, disciplinary format. But they do basically a debunking of myths in relation to mythical vampires and actual real life vampire communities. And they say that actual real life vampires are very far from the stereotypes of violent serial killers that is propagated by the media and has often led to real life tragedies in terms of the administration of justice because of the perpetuation of stereotypes.
Right. Right. Also, one of the thesis statements by also in that book was that the serial killer always returns, or the monster, I should say, the monster always returns. And I think that's so true because is that why we have so many sequels these days? But also it seems like even if you get rid of a monster in the closet, well, how do you know it's not there the next time, you know?
Yeah, that's true. There's something about the monster that eternally resurrects itself in numerous forms, precisely because it represents not only our deepest fears, but our deepest aspirations as well.
Right, right. Also, I wanted to ask, I wrote it down here, because I've never seen the movie. I think it's really hard to get, although I just, before starting this, I just looked it up. It is on Pluto for free. Of course, you have to watch ads, I'm sure, but Henry, the Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Oh, yes, I've written on that as well.
Yeah, what is your, so,
Very difficult film to watch.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's, but is it based on a true story? Or like you
yes,
mentioned, it is?
it
Oh,
is.
okay. Just like, because I think Psycho was loosely based on Ed Gein, but maybe
Hmm.
another serial killer.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep, that's correct. That's correct, yeah. What's different about Henry the serial killer is that the point of view that the camera takes during the killings is that of the killer. So you're actually participating vicariously, in this
Oh,
really terrible slaughter that occurs. So it's the point of view that the film adopts that is, for me, problematic.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, what was I going to say? Shoot, I had another question here. Well, this kind of goes back to the other. There are two movies that I actually like, but they're kind of like guilty pleasures because I know that the critics didn't like them. But the first is actually based on a Michael Crichton book, Congo. It's a great book, but a pretty bad movie, although it's a guilty pleasure. But the whole thing is like it's going to be fascinating. I don't know if you read it, but it's going to be fascinating to set this gorilla free. She's going to go back home to the African jungle where she is. But so it's kind of exciting. But then there's this fear of these other gorillas that are attacking people, and there's fears about snakes, about the people, because you have cannibals that are, and so it's kind of like it deals with they don't necessarily say monster, but it's kind of like the fear of the unknown, whether it's these cannibals or
Mm.
these
Mhm.
gorilla because gorillas are in real life are really friendly, but it's like the idea that they could be attacked or they could attack them, this new
Mhm.
species, these
Mhm.
gray gorillas, and then also the snakes, the leeches, the wildlife.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's like the fear of the other, I think is so it's always going to be kind of a staple in horror movies and monster movies especially. Like, because we don't know what's out there. It's like UFOs, right? I know that Spielberg just did a that UFO movie, right? Which I heard
Right.
is it's okay, it's not great, um but I'll definitely check it out because I like Spielberg. But yeah, the fear of the unknown. And then the other movie that I was thinking of was once again, don't laugh at me because it's kind of a guilty pleasure, but it's called The
Right.
Ghost in the
Right.
Darkness. The
No
Ghost
judgment zone here.
yeah, The Ghost in the Darkness, which stars Val Kilmer, and his whole dream is to go to Africa, and he loves it. He loves it, except his job is to build a railroad track and to kind of connect the British. It had something to do with the British colonies, whatever. But during the making of it, though, of the bridge, um, these two man-eating lions attack the workers. And the legend is that they killed like something like 150 people, workers. In reality, they actually have these lions in the Chicago. I don't know how it got to Chicago, but anyways, in the Chicago Museum. And actually, they did DNA analysis of their teeth, and basically what they confirmed is that there were maybe like 35 kills, which is still a lot. But anyways, though, Val Kilmer, the whole thing is that he's like worried about like what he doesn't know. Like he thinks
Mhm.
that they're lions, but then he finds out that they are lions, and he thinks that there's multiple. He finds out there are only two of them that did all these killings. But I know I'm going off on a tangent, but but
That's fine. That's fine. Actually, your theoretical discussion, let's put it that way, has intersected with another of the essays in the edited collection. There's an essay by Steve Greenfield, and he's a professor of law, but then he's written a lot on law and film. And he did an analysis of two different types of serial killers who were both medical doctors. So there's the French doctor, Dr. Petiot, and then there is the English doctor, Dr. Harold Shipman. And he was trying to understand what motivated them turning from being saviors into slaughterers. And he says that the first type, the Dr. Petiot, which is based on a film in 1990, is set in Paris during the Second World War, where people are trying to escape from the German occupation of Paris. And there is an explanation, a rational explanation for why he starts to kill, and that seems to be associated with greed. And his killings are spectacularly depicted. On the other hand, Harold Shipman, who was a general practitioner, tended to kill quietly. And for Steve Greenfield, this is the more disturbing type of serial killer because there's absolutely no motivation that he could understand for why he would kill his patients. He killed about 215 of them. And
Wow.
it's ironic that both doctors were actually highly regarded members of their profession at the time that they were engaging in these criminal acts.
Right. And yes, there definitely is a distinction between like the Eileen Wuornos, who's kind of like you compare it to Frankenstein, the lumbering, ugly um serial killer, and then you have like people like you said, like doctors who do it. Like I've even seen some crime shows that like referred to, yeah, a doctor. He murdered his wife in one case. He murdered his wife and then was due for surgery, did the surgery, like performed surgery, and then like as if it was like no big deal. And yeah, some people are just like that. I guess like they can be highly intelligent, but also, lunatics at the same time, you know.
Sociopaths.
A sociopath, exactly, exactly. Exactly. So, just have a couple more questions. I mean, feel free though if you have any other things you want to add or um articulate on. But I was going to ask you, as a maybe a tease for our next video. I was going to ask you about because came across your article and about the Holocaust themes in Pan's Labyrinth, which I remember I saw that movie when it came out. I loved the movie, but we can maybe talk about that next time as well as other Holocaust stories and movies. But
Oh, that's another collaboration, I think, with John Edgar Browning.
yeah.
So I'll have to dig up that particular book chapter.
But also I wanted to well also I told you about this before, but I think you'd be interested if we can get my friend my former boss actually, because she wrote that whole book. She's a lawyer too. She wrote that whole book on Countess Elisabeth Bathory, or in
Mhm,
English it translates to Elizabeth Bathory, who
mhm,
supposedly is the world's worst serial killer, the worst monster of all time.
mhm, mhm,
She supposedly killed 670 of her servant girls or something like that, bathed in blood.
mhm.
And there's
Yeah,
been a lot.
John Edgar Browning has written about
Oh,
about
okay.
this particular character,
Yeah.
yes.
And my
Mhm,
friend actually went through and translated the legal documents, like the court proceedings, for the first
mhm.
time that anybody's ever done that. So I'd love to get her on here. And then I also have to close, and maybe we can, okay, I have to close with have you ever heard of the FBI profiler named John Douglas at all? He's He's famous. He's retired now, but he actually started a show called Criminal Minds.
Mhm. Oh, yes, yes. I used to watch it ad
Yeah,
infinitum.
yeah. And
Mhm,
he's a famous FBI profiler. In fact, this goes back to like 2003, I think, maybe
mhm,
2004. I wrote a screenplay that was kind of based on a Jack the Ripper clone or copycat in modern times. It's
mhm.
horrible. It's horrible. But as part of the research, I read some books and I read his take on, he's got a book, I forget what it's called, but he's got a chapter entirely on Jack the Ripper. And I mean, it's really extensive and very, very
Mhm.
detailed and descriptive. And he like explains exactly the personality of Jack the Ripper. He explains like the locations he would be at and why he chose the locations he was at for the five murders. And then he even names a person. And this is like 25 years ago, probably when he wrote the book. He turned out to be right, exactly right. They found out DNA evidence who Jack the Ripper is now.
Mm.
Um, and so he turned out to be exactly right. But he's featured on like that show called Forensic Files. And
Mhm.
he was somehow able, I don't know how, but he was somehow able to identify the type of car, like he said like, oh, this killer is probably going to be in this area that you can find him, and he's probably going to be driving a Volkswagen or something like that. He turned out to be right. It's amazing. I mean,
Uh, a real life, a real life super detective,
yeah, yeah.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Philip Marlowe, or oh, but anyways, so I guess we can wrap it up. We'll chat next time. It's always great to hear from the great Dr. Caroline Picart.
That's very sweet. Let me just close on
Sure.
another referent to Monsters Law Crime. There is an essay actually on Clint Eastwood's um,
American Sniper.
American Sniper. That's correct. It's written by Maruf Hassian, and what it does is it analyzes how the popularization of the movie actually granted the public in general, not simply film scholars or fans of Chris Kyle,
Right.
a certain vernacular to talk about larger discussions regarding use in bellum, meaning the reasons why we go to war or what constitutes a just war versus use ad bello, which refers to the methods we use during war, which of course includes sniping. And the eventual conclusion of the essay is to point out that through the film's acquisition of Chris Kyle's point of view as he snipes, through the incorporation of that point of view, mirroring that of his nemesis, of course, who is also shot in a very similar way, the film uncovers what I call a central insight in Gothic criminology that often the hunter of the monstrous must resemble the monstrous to some extent in order to be an effective hunter. And people who do serial killing have long expressed this, that in order to be effective at profiling serial killers, one has to learn how to think like them, which is
Yes.
a dramatic and disturbing insight.
Yes, there was I read an article. This was a lot. I used to teach a class called Media and Society, and there's different theories about how the media affects people. One of oh, okay, we're almost out of time, but we got time. But like one of the theories is called the cathartic release effect, where people play video games and people the argument is that well, it's better they kill people in the video game than in real life. But also um you made me think too that one of the complaints that a lot of like the parents groups have, like the PMRC and some of these other organizations, some of them religious or some of them just parental organizations, is that shows like Forensic Files or what was the other one? Some of the shows they teach criminals how to be better criminals, and that's why the parents groups want those shows censored, or at least the safe harbor hours, which are I'm sure as a lawyer like 10 p.m. I think the safe harbor hours are 10 well they used to be 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I don't know if they still are, but
Mhm.
but yeah, that's a great point. That's a great way to end our conversation to mention that. So I'm glad, and like you said, I think that like your writings are eclectic, just as Jeffrey Weinstock said that it kind of can go across various disciplines. It's not just about crime, it's not just about film, it's not just about television, but it's about the law. Like it's it's all over the place. So that's so
Hopefully not in a confusing morass.
yeah, yeah.